Hello, and welcome back to Once Upon a Time in PatORG, the companion podcast to PatORG Season 25. Welcome to Hollywood, All Stars Edition. My name is Danny. I'm one of the hosts on the hosting team for the podcast, and joining me today is our resident jokester, Chase. Chase, how are you?
Hello, I am wonderful. I kind of like the resident jokester title. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me once again. Yeah, I'm excited to dig into it a little bit more and get the mind and perspective of our wonderful guest for the day. So, Danny, why don't you introduce our lovely star of the show?
Yes, thanks so much. We have a high profile guest today, one of the biggest all stars on the cast from season 22 amusement parks. We have Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Danny. Hi, Chase. I'm very excited to be here amongst season 24 royalty. Much better than those season 24 people left in the game. I'll say that.
I
Just
love it.
kidding.
I love it. Starting
Just
out
kidding.
hot. This is
We'll
no,
take
this is
it.
what I'm here for,
We love some hot takes.
Yeah.
um,
So
Go ahead.
yeah, I figure, we'll get this out of the way. Everyone's always gonna be wondering this, so I'll ask, how does it feel to have officially won a challenge in PatOrg? I know it took you a long time,
Ooh.
so
Oh my
how does it
God.
feel to finally be in the winner's circle for once?
What a question. It felt amazing for like 5 seconds, and then I had to go to the sign and deal with two season 22 people. And do another challenge there that we just like continually flopped. So then I just felt the same as I always do. A challenge failure. It was great.
Yeah,
It's,
it was very interesting to watch. You coming into the season previously having won zero challenges. And then here you're constantly going to tribal, and then the one time you win a challenge, you are sent to exile, so you're safe anyway. How did that
Yeah.
feel?
It was nice to be safe. Like it was nice to be safe. I would have loved to enjoy the night off. Like I
Mm-hmm.
thought less, like people have such a luxury when they win a challenge, they get to like not think about the org for a night, but I didn't have that luxury. But it was nice to be safe, but it was also like it was very like unsettling to not know what was going on back at camp even though we weren't going to tribal. I was like, oh my god, everyone's planning stuff without me now. I missed Gabriel so much because we'd been talking like nonstop since we got there. And I just felt super awkward with the combination of people that I went to the sign with.
Yeah, speaking
Mm-hmm.
about that, crazy energy and all these plans, you were a very, very aggressive player. I'll use that word this
Uh-huh.
season. Was there any consideration in your mind that, for an all-star season, you might want to tone things back a bit, or were you just like, you know what, I'm already kind of down the path of wild plays, so let's just ride it until I, fall off the bus eventually.
Yeah, it was definitely more the latter. I think ever since I saw the cast reveal and Patrick had the audacity to reveal 24 people and just like that number in itself was super daunting and just the caliber of the cast overall was really really impressive and scary to me and I was like I like do not belong in the company of these people. So I think my goal from the beginning was I was like, I don't ever want to play scared. I don't want to go out feeling like I should have done more or like that I was helpless at any point because I experienced that so much on season 22, especially in the pre-merge. So I kind of knew that I was going to want to be a bolder player this season, even if it meant making my profile too high and going out early, which is what happened. I honestly don't regret it.
Well, I wouldn't even say early. You survived like 20 plus days. It was a really, really long game so far.
That is true. It did feel long. But there's still people who haven't gone to tribal, so they're
That,
just chilling.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's true. Yeah, we're still in the pre-merge phase. We haven't merged yet. Um,
Right.
but let's start at the beginning a little bit. You found yourself on a tribe. Was there anyone you were hoping to see from your cast, or even like that you knew of? Anyone that you wanted to steer clear of in the very beginning?
I think the most obvious things for me is like I did like a preseason like trust rankings, which doesn't mean anything because I didn't know anyone or not didn't know everyone. But it just happened to work out. Like the person I was most excited to meet up with was Gabriel, and so I was really excited to see him on my tribe. We have the sixth place hero titles in common. I was like, great, that's something we can, start off with. And I just really enjoyed spectating him during your season. Like I know you guys both worked with him, so you know like what a joy he is to talk to. He's just like a fantastic person. And he really delivered in that front. So I was really happy to connect with him. I think in terms of people I did not want to see, Chris from your season, I just knew that we wouldn't ever vibe well, just based on like how he played last season. He's just a little too chaotic for me. He's very intense. And when I did end up meeting up with him after the second swap, that did come to fruition. Like he was exactly as I expected. And then in terms of people from my season, I was really nervous. I didn't think any of the people from my season were going to want to work with me, and I didn't like that season 22 had the most people on it compared to the other seasons. So both of those things really concerned me going in.
Yeah, and as the game went on, did you feel like that really, had much of an impact on people's minds? We're trying to even the numbers throughout the seasons. Do you think there was a lot of I don't want to use the word pre-gaming, but consideration of how previous seasons went, and how did you really navigate that field of kind of being the obvious target purely from a numbers perspective of, hey, there's more people from your season than any other season.
Yeah, I think it's something people definitely thought about, and it became super obvious. I think I was like the third person to go to the sign or something, and it was with two other people from season 22. And the person who got voted out at that vote was the second vote. Oh yeah, second time. Second vote was O, who um is from our season as well. So like I felt some kind of guilt, honestly, that like maybe it became super obvious that there was three of us at the sign, possibly scheming together. Might as well take out one of the season 22 numbers at that point. The other time when it was super like something on my mind at the beginning of the season was when I was trying to save Justin. I never wanted it to seem like we had any sort of connection from our season, and I never wanted that to be a consideration or of something of a reason why he should stay. So those were the times I think I was like most hyper aware of the season 22 dynamic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you definitely had your eyes on some of these players, especially during that Justin vote. We saw you almost a little frustrated that you didn't take a shot at DeLuca here. Um, what were your thoughts on that? Did you think DeLuca was in a stronger position and maybe you wanted to weaken her there?
I was thinking very long term since the beginning. I think one of the benefits I had of not only doing the podcast last season, but spectating the past two seasons really closely was like I feel like I knew a lot of the dynamics of the players coming in, who gets along, who didn't, who worked together, who didn't. And so it was after the very first tribal where Caleb revealed that DeLuca had found an idol that I was like, this is going to be a problem later on, because Chris is on another tribe, someone she worked with very closely who is really cracked at finding idols. There's no way he's not finding an idol. And if the two of them meet up and they both have idols, like that's a problem. But like that's something that's kind of hard to sell to people who aren't aware of that dynamic. But it was something that I
Yeah.
was thinking about from the minute like Caleb revealed that. So to me, like she needed to go. And like I honestly still wish that I had tried to push harder to get her out.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's one of those things where you know, people often want to play really conservatively, and you were always on the aggressive train, and it kind of feels like the one time you didn't fully put the metal pedal to the metal on that aggressive side, it ended up costing you a little bit later down the line.
Yeah, I would say it did, but I again like I still think it was the right thing to do because I got taken out, by to them, they were there
Oh
to
no,
declare the
I'm
idol.
I'm fully on your
Yeah,
side.
like yeah,
Sorry.
I just like I think in that position, but the biggest issue is like I needed Justin to do more to save himself because like me pushing for him just based on the idol and not based on us having any relationship didn't really add up to other people, so it was just a hard sell.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about your mentality at that first swap. MGM had kind of been losing a lot, and did you have hope that that trend would end and things would be a little bit more calm for you, or did you kind of go into that swap knowing, oh boy, here I am at tribal, and here's how I'm going to have to move forward?
Here's the thing, like I don't know how to play an org if I don't have an imminent tribal. Like I've never been safe. So like that's just the pretense I always operate under. So that's how I'm going to be acting. I think that's part of the reason I seem to play less safe than other people is cuz I always am planning for a tribal. Um and so, yeah, that was definitely what I was trying to set up for. I do wish we hadn't had to go to tribal right away because I feel like the amount of scrambling I had to do after the first swap to get Daniel out was made me way, way too visible. But it was something I was thinking about as soon as we got on the tribes, and like honestly, as soon as I talked to him, because the first thing he told me was that he felt good about Clara and Jess, and I was like, okay, that's what I figured, and you're just kind of reaffirming that. And then when Andrew sent me the extra vote, like it is something Andrew and I had talked about too. I was like, okay, he's kind of giving me the green light now. So like I unleashed my full like crazy at that point.
Yeah, chaos Cass. I can't think of a chaos word for Sarah, but we'll just pretend. We'll pretend I came up with something
I
right
stay
there.
in Chaos Cats. I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very hectic tribal with Daniel. But it was the beginning of you sort of putting your foot down. You There was this talk of a season 22, season 23 alliance. You felt you would be on the bottom of that, so you had to do something to change your position. Um, that was all aided by the superhero twist that came from the sign. How are you feeling about this season's twist with Exile and then these genres that are adding some sort of new twist every time during every round?
I don't think when I first heard about the twist of Exile, I really considered how much it could impact the game, especially with the smaller tribes, and especially as my original tribe dwindled in numbers. And it really did. It affected like pretty much every single vote that happened on MGM. Um, the the theme part of it, I don't think I ever fully understood. Even when like I got the extra vote, I assumed it came from both people at the sign. I was like, oh great, this is from Andrew and Henry. But it was really just from Andrew. And the other stuff, like it wasn't that clear to me how it was being implemented. Like later we had the mutiny and stuff. So I
Mm-hmm.
started to understand like it was a theme with some sort of consequence in game. But since we didn't really know what the themes were unless you're at the sign, it was kind of hard to plan or guess what those actual twists would end up being. So I did not like Exile because it was really bad for my game, I feel like, in the beginning. And the twists themselves, like, I think they were fine. Like, I'm fine with them.
Yeah, yeah. And the twist happened. You have the Andrew gets the extra vote. You do all that, and then finally, when things seem to be looking up for you, and you finally position yourself well within your tribe, oh boom, another swap happens, and you kind of find yourself in the same position that me and Danny found ourselves, where you have this big power. Duos of Chris and DeLuca and Nelson and B. And from your perspective, you're like, hey, these are obviously the players that are going to ruin your game if you don't take them out. How was it like to be in that situation of knowing that these were the targets and trying to convince people to like believe you that, these are the people they should be looking out for?
So Gabe and I talked a bunch when we got onto that tribe, and I think like I had to do a little convincing to him because he like immediately felt good about Chris because Chris reached out to both of us and was like, "Oh, Peter vouched for you guys," and like I'm close with Peter and B, and we're like a tight group, and since Peter vouched for you, like you're in with us, like we got this. And like to me, it was like kind of not making that much sense because that would have left Henry and Lily on the outs, who had more previous tribe connections with the people there, and I'm like, there's this like a bunch of duos. Like, there's four people who are clearly together now because if Chris is telling me that B is his number one, I know that Nelson is B's number one, so that's gonna happen. The DeLuca Chris thing, they're like weirdly trying to play it down, but it's like very obvious to me that it's not true. And I know they both have idols at this point because Talia had told Gabriel about Chris's idol. Obviously, we know about DeLuca's idol. And I'd kind of sussed out that Nelson had an idol on the previous tribe. Like I was very like sure of it, but I don't think anyone else was, and it was kind of hard for me to explain to other people, but I just assumed Nelson had an idol. So that kind of scared me, and I kind of thought like the play would be to convince Nelson and B like, hey, like there's another pair here with two idols, like that's threatening to you. But now looking back, I see that they wanted to sort of hide behind that, which I understand for them, and they wanted to play a little safer there, which is, obviously not how I was trying to play. But the thought that Gabriel and I had was, we'll just have to try to ride this whatever trust that Peter put into place for us, and really just try to survive and push it on to Lily or Henry if we have to go to tribal.
Yeah, yeah, definitely one of those tough situations where you know you can't fault people for doing what you see as good for the game, and you're like, yeah, I understand why you do this and it makes sense, but in your perspective, you're like, that doesn't work for me though. Like why can't you be dumb and do something that benefits my game?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's always a fun situation to be in when people are too smart for your good.
Yeah, and you mentioned Peter there. I don't know if you found out yet, but we saw at the sign Peter and DeLuca met up the round before, and they had sort of exchanged the idea of you wanting to target DeLuca in the very beginning, and that's sort of what got the train rolling to um, target
Yeah.
you for this vote.
Yeah.
What were your feelings on that? And once you found out, I believe there was a confrontation with DeLuca, that you were the target. How how were you feeling in that moment?
Okay, so when she tells me this, I'm like, okay, obviously it's Peter that's spilling, and I was a little confused why. I was like, okay, he hasn't seen me in like two tribes, I don't know how strong he still feels like about the Compass Alliance, which was Gabriel, Peter, and myself, and which was kind of like, my top two people on the original MGM. And honestly, like I was confused. I was like, okay, why are you throwing me specifically under the bus here? Like, wouldn't it be helpful for you to have more allies versus fewer? If we get into a merge situation. But I think he saw it as like a self-preservation move. Like he had spent time with Chris at this point. He had spent time with B at this point. He felt good about them and he understood, I think, that like the power was going to lie with them. So I think he did it to ensure that he would be in with that group come merge, which like it's just like could not be me. Like I'm always like more, I don't know,
Yeah.
just like it just like felt like kind of like a scared kind of move, not in a negative way, but like a safer move. So I was like, it made sense to me. But she told me two things. She said, she said, I've heard that. She didn't tell me who. You were trying to gun for me on original MGM, and you've told people about my idol. And I've been racking my brain since then. I'm pretty sure I didn't tell anyone about her idol until I told Nelson after this conversation,
You
but he already
definitely
knew.
did not. Like it
Yeah,
was
so
even
I
to the
don't know about
point
that part.
where Chris didn't believe like that Gabriel didn't have the idol,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like I don't really know like if I don't remember if Peter said that you gave her idol up, but it definitely wasn't something that like I saw happening until after
Okay,
that
that's reassuring
conversation.
because I was
So
like, did I forget telling people? Because Chris had been coming at me like really hard trying to find out who had the MGM idol. And to me, I'm like, this is a trust test. Like he obviously knows about DeLuca's idols and he wants to see if I'm going to tell him about it to see if he can trust me. And so I'm like, no, I'm not going to tell you. But I didn't realize at that time he legitimately thought Gabriel had it and not DeLuca, which is interesting. Um, but yeah, so she comes at me with those two accusations, and I'm basically like, it's not true. And she was telling me I had really hurt her, and etc. And I don't know, like I responded and I was like, listen, it's not true. Like this is a complete exaggeration. There was talk about your idol, but it was never a serious consideration to vote you off, and which is obviously not true. And I never told anyone about your idol, which is true. And she never responded to me again. So that's where we left off on that.
well, I'd like to move us into a little bit of a happier note, I guess. A lot of Gabe talk so far, so I want to give you the opportunity to get your perspective on, what it's like working with him, how you think he'll fare as the game goes on, and just any other positive things you have to say about, your own game that you played. Just any happy thoughts. This is the place to have them. I'd love to hear you, give yourself props as well.
I am proud of the Daniel vote. I know I probably shouldn't be because it really raised my threat level way too high at that point. But like given the time frame that we had, and even looking back now at like their trust rankings, the people in that group's trust rankings at that point, and seeing that Daniel had to do a Carl bot decision of who he would put in his first position, Clara or Jess, like it just kind of reaffirms to me that that was the right thing to do. And it's unfortunate because I wasn't opposed to working with any of them, but when they're all there together as a unit, and they had Nelson there, and Nelson had told me he had planned to work with them in the short term as well, like it just like it didn't work for me. I don't know. I think I went in with like this perspective, and it maybe just is just who I am as a player,
Hmm.
that like it's boring to me to be in like a majority alliance. Like it is. Like it's just much more fun to me to like have to put in work to like pick up everyone who's on the bottom and bring them together for like a common cause. Like I just think it builds like much better loyalty, and it's just like a lot
Yeah.
more fun of a way to
Mhm.
play.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of that because like feel like I had to bring together a bunch of people who had no trust in each other to begin with, and who didn't necessarily know me. Like EJ didn't know anything about me prior to that. Um, and Talia didn't really know me at all. I had to mostly communicate that through Gabriel. So I'm proud of that coming together, because I think like, and Andrew as well, like even after that swap happened, like I feel like if I had ended up on a tribe instead with people like EJ and Andrew or Stanley, um, like they would have wanted to continue working with me. So I'm proud of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a from a spectator perspective as well. It was awesome to see it all come together and go off so flawlessly. Because kind of up until that point, pretty much all of the votes have been unanimous and boring and kind of foregone conclusions. So it was nice to have a little bit of fight in players and make people really, prove that they're all stars. So it was really cool, and I really think that so far it's been the most exciting vote that I've witnessed all season. I don't want to speak for Danny, but I'm sure he has very similar feelings as well.
Yes, I absolutely would agree with that. I think Daniel was one of the biggest players that have been taken out so far. And you had a hand in that, and I think you should be very proud. And I do think that if you had gotten on a better swap tribe after that vote, you'd be in a much better spot. I think that the swap was
Yeah,
unlucky.
we wouldn't even be talking to you right now. We'll put it that
Yeah.
way. So curse Carl.
Yeah, I'm never a
Yeah.
fan of Carl, but you know, like I don't want to say like I was swap screwed because like obviously there's always something you can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it felt unlucky, and looking back and seeing how locked in everybody else was, I think it was going to be a real uphill battle to stay safe there.
Yeah, and you talk about meeting people for the first time like EJ and Talia. Was there anyone that really surprised you on, you may have spec their season or knew of them third hand and, getting to play with them that really, changed your perception of them? Was there anything that stood out where your perception of who they were was not at all what it was like, when they were actually in the game?
I think for the most part my expectations were met. I think like I don't want to speak poorly of anyone, so I'll say the positive ones. I think B is just like incredible. Like watching her on season 23, what she was able to do socially was amazing, and being able to experience it firsthand is just like a dream come true, honestly. Like she's so good. Like if you
Did
have
you
one
did you
conversation with her, yeah.
you got a voice call with her, right?
I had a couple voice calls with
Okay.
her, and it was fantastic. Like she artfully like ignored all of my game related questions and just like talked to me about other things, and I was just like entranced. She's amazing to talk to. So B definitely was like such a lovely like person to be able to meet and have her like go above and beyond the expectations I would have had about her game. Um so yeah, that was amazing. I think EJ as well. EJ was somebody I didn't know that well. Um, I had known like that, like he was kind of like the person to beat on season 21, and he was in like that fallen angel position, I think. And we just like instantly clicked and we vibed right away. Like we had really fun conversations. And so when it came to the strategy stuff, it was like almost very easy because we established trust super, super quickly. So
Hmm.
I'd say those two are probably my top two.
Yeah, yeah. It's cool. It's always that's the interesting part of these all-star seasons is you have all these visions of people that you see I want to say on TV, but that doesn't really make sense here. But you have all that, and then you never know what it's going to be like once you get on the island, I guess.
Exactly.
So now you're joining us in the Spec Lounge. Is there anyone that you're rooting for to win this game?
Obviously, Gabriel. Like, I'm gonna have to be super biased toward Gabriel. I adore Gabriel. Like, he was another one where, like, he was everything and more that I could have hoped for. I'm really glad I had, like, that preseason read that, um, like, he would be someone that I could work well with. And I think like, at times I got frustrated because he definitely tried to play more conservatively than I did, but I think it was good for
Mhm.
me ultimately to have that sort of balance. So I'm really rooting for Gabriel. He's so likable. He's really smart. He's become a challenge beast this season.
Yeah, he
And
was
everybody
he
who
was
meets him really
carrying it.
likes him. Yeah, so he's extremely good socially as well. So I'd love to see him do well. Um, but other than that, like, I more than anything, I want it to be like a good season. Like, I really do. Like, just like I'm excited to spectate it. Like, obviously we've had some negative stuff over the past couple days, but overall I just want it to be like an exciting season to watch because, like, as a fan of like everybody on this cast, I know they can bring good TV. I just want to see it. And being in the game and seeing how safe people were playing, I was like a little frustrated. So I hope that like more people break out once we get to the merge and we see some exciting plays. And ultimately, I'll be happy with if we get a winner who just like played a solid, fun game that gave us some entertainment.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know if you've watched the episode I had with Jess yet, but I have a little thing where towards the end I like to give people hater acceptable zone. So this is your time. Get the hate out of you. Let it flow. Any we'll obviously keep it lighthearted and fun, but this is your time to be a hater, and I'll join in, and we can sip some haterade together.
I truly do not have hate for anyone in this cast. Like, they're all wonderful people. And I'm sorry if people feel any hate towards me. It's definitely deserved. But like, I feel like I've been trying to be deliberate about like keeping things from being personal. And I don't think some people think I've done a good job of that. So I'm sorry about that. But for me, like, I don't have any ill will towards anyone. I went out though, I'll say kind of salty with two people just based on like how they talked to me when like they were telling me they were voting me out, and that's DeLuca and Henry. Um, DeLuca just because she left me on red after like
Yeah.
accusing me of all these things, which I understand. Like, she was upset and she felt betrayed. But I just like I was like, okay, I gave you like the time to say what you needed to say, like, and you didn't really afford me back the same privilege, so that kind of
Hmm.
annoyed me. And then Henry was just kind of like, I don't even know how to say it. He like he was it was I don't know. It didn't come off great to me. Like, maybe I was just like already just like, feeling a little defeated. But he felt like a little bit like he was kicking me when I was down, and he was saying like,
Hmm.
I gave Daniel to you as an ally on a silver platter, like assuming that like you guys would work together and you voted him out. So that was like a personal attack on me, and I'm like, how am I supposed to know that? Like,
Also,
and
like,
like
Yeah.
also
do
like let me
anything.
play my own game. Like, sorry.
Right.
Well, and it's like Carl
Yeah.
did that. It's not like he's
Yeah.
he's like, okay, Pat, you're gonna put Sarah and Daniel together. Like, what are you
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah. So, like that, I was just like, okay. So those are the two people like I went out a little annoyed with, but like I said, like I don't have any actual hate toward them. It was just like, I
Oh
feel like
yeah,
people like B and Nelson did a lot better job of like talking to me on my way out while still telling me that I was going home. So
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
like, just like the
It's
management
it's
part of it.
in-game
But
hate. We'll put it that way.
yeah, yeah,
It's the
exactly.
you got to
It's
play the
nothing
heel,
bad.
right? Yeah.
Fully in
But
game.
I wish them both well. I think they can both do really well. So I'm excited to see what they do.
All right. Last thing, merge might be coming soon. We have no idea. Who are your top three contenders, and who are the top three people you think might have a very short time at the merge?
Contenders? Okay. It sucks because I haven't got to play with everyone. I never got to play with like Shay or Steven, which stinks. I think my top three contenders, someone who was a super like good surprise to me, like strategically, I think Talia is so good. I would love to see her do well. I think she's a contender for sure. I came into this like sort of saying that like I thought everyone would want to work with her, and it's true. Like, everyone does want to work with her. And so I would love to see Italia win. I think she's a contender. And then I'll say Andrew and EJ because those are two people I sort of connected with, and I just like I see like the strategic chops are there. And Andrew and I had talked a lot about taking down like the Chris Alliance at some point, so I think they could do something. In terms of like, what was the other question? Like boots at the
Yeah,
ring,
who
I
do you
think.
think's who do you think's
Who's
gonna
gonna
be
strike
Merge
some
boots.
early boots, some early
Yeah.
targets?
I think that Chris could go out early merge if we merge here. I just think like, just because he's a very visible player, even if not everybody's aware of the antics he's been up to the past couple of days, word's gonna travel quickly. Obviously he has an idol, which might save him for a round, but I think he goes out early merge if he can't put together a challenge run. And let's see who else is still around. Let me look at congratulations really quick.
Yeah, Pat doesn't have an
Yeah.
updated cast
Oh,
list, so it's
I mean,
impossible to
do you,
even know who's in the game.
do you
yeah,
think Gabriel's possibly in trouble here?
uh I think I don't know because Peter didn't throw him under the bus as he did me, right? Like
No.
so he could be okay. I think if he reconnects with like I have to see where Stanley's at. Stanley could be a possible early boot here as well, I think. Maybe even like Steven as somebody who's like clearly a challenge beast, but hasn't gone to a tribal yet, so he's not tested his loyalties. So I could see something like that.
Fair, fair.
Sure.
I
All
think I
all
think it'll
great
be interesting.
thoughts. Yeah. I think that's all we have for you, Sarah. Is there any last thoughts that you might have, or any other feelings that you want to just get out there?
No, I have listened. I haven't had a chance to listen to the latest episode of Jess, but I've listened to all the other episodes. I think you guys have done a really good job. It's really been fun. It's been fun going back and reading stuff in Spec Lounge so far. So yeah, it's just been a really fun season to be a part of. I'm very grateful to Pat for having me back, and I'm just looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, we got an all-star among us, right?
Absolutely.
Me and
Exactly.
Danny could never.
We could never. Thanks so much, Sarah. You've been wonderful to talk to as always. Um, I think that's all we have for you guys today.
Oh, I
Chase.
didn't draft you. I promised I wouldn't draft you, and I didn't. So
Thank you for being my number
I
one
also did
hater.
not
I
draft
was.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
I tried. Like it was hard,
Yeah.
you know, because no one else was doing anything. Like everyone else was just, oh, unanimous vote, unanimous vote. So I'm like, well, do I have to root for Sarah? She's like at least trying something.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for letting me talk your ear up. I know it was kind of going on, so I appreciate
No,
No,
the
no,
no.
outlet.
it was
All right.
wonderful.
All right. Thanks so much to you too, Chase. And I guess we'll sign off there. Bye.
Yeah.